Cash-strapped South Africans now have to pay more at the pumps for petrol and diesel from today. The increase is likely to push commodity prices. This as the economy is already reeling from an electricity crisis that has worsened living standards for many of us. We're now joined by Trudie Broekmann, consumer law expert. Trudie, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. I guess the big question, right, is what can I do to cushion myself, if anything at all? We oftentimes hear about the importance of budgeting. Hi, Trudie. It's Dudu. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I just lost the lady speaking a moment back.
No worries. So what can a consumer, not even a consumer, what can the average South African do? How do I cushion myself from the blow of it all? If it's not the electricity, it's the rising prices of food, it's the rising prices of petrol.
Exactly. What we need to expect with the fuel rise, where we see the big rises are with transport costs. So there I'm thinking about bus services, school buses, taxi, e-hailing services, and then if you have a vehicle, your own petrol expenses as well. And then, of course, Eskom uses diesel to cushion us against failures at the power plants, and that obviously affects their ability and increase in the diesel price, which thankfully is a bit lower than the petrol increase. But nevertheless, that affects Eskom, which affects all of us as consumers. And any power cut reduces your ability to earn income, and reduces employers' ability to give increases in salaries. So really the squeeze is coming from all sides. We can talk about more about that. But to answer your question, what I'm recommending for consumers is that we really take a very careful look at our discretionary expenses and that you reduce those. So what we're seeing at my firm, I'm a consumer attorney, and what we're seeing at the firm is a lot of instructions from consumers who have timeshare. You have to pay for the timeshare, whether you go or not, and a lot of people are cancelling their timeshare in order to make that saving every month or every year. We're seeing that consumers are car sharing, so both spouses have a car. Now they're getting rid of the one and rather sharing one vehicle between them. If that's not your situation, you could even get rid of the vehicle and make use of e-hailing services that are or ordinary taxis or public transport. So everyone is downscaling. One can take a careful look at your rent or your bond payments. And now is the time to be realistic and brutal with your expenses and to downscale if that's required in your situation. We mustn't expect that things are going to get better for consumers financially as the year continues. We're not seeing big salary increases. Most salaries are in a holding pattern. So in essence, financially as consumers, we're going backwards. And we need to reflect that in terms of our spending. I was very interested to read a study that was done in the UK that says when you're worried about money, you don't have the usual hit of dopamine when you make a payment and buy something. They call it purchase pleasure. So I think most of us South Africans are in the squeeze, and we must understand that we're not going to get the purchase pleasure from spending money that we can't afford. And I recommend that consumers take a look at all the free pleasures that we have in our lives. Schedule a lovely walk in nature with your best friend once a week. Schedule some me time where you can just sit with a book or a magazine or something that you already have in the house and relax. And focus your pleasure taking, because we need that in our lives, especially when we are worried, on the things that deliver for us free of charge. And there are so many of those available in our lives if you just take a careful look.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing essentially is to take care of your mental health as well, right? Because as you mentioned, we are being squeezed tighter and tighter, but it's also important to take care of self.
Absolutely. You cannot It's very hard to save and to make very sensible financial decisions at a time that where you're feeling anxious, where you're feeling stressed, where you're struggling to think in a straight line. If you can look after yourself and then take the decision and do the right thing, it's much easier for us. And I know how consumers are. I'm a consumer myself. That is how we operate, and we need to operate within our own ability to manage ourselves and our finances and our lives and our pleasure levels all at the same time.
Yeah, you mentioned taking some of those low-hanging fruit. What about getting a card for a card, right? So all those point cards or reward cards where you get 10% off of this or 5% off of that with no shame in your game.
For sure, I'm the best bargain hunter. I really think if you can get a deal, go for it. Look carefully at the fine print and make sure that it really serves you. And jump out when you see that this is actually a scheme for the supplier to get something from you rather than you being able to benefit. Yes, for sure. I mean, now is the time that we really encourage suppliers to also come to the party and say, okay, this is how we can work with you to make sure that your budget fits into, or your month fits into your budget. And that we're all in this thing together. Eskom, inflation, increased travel expenses, all of those things affect literally every South African, and I think we can, it's better together, for sure.
My dear, aren't we grateful that air is free? You can just take a deep breath. Trudie Broekmann, consumer law expert, thank you.